Thanks for listening to Two Girls, One Plant.
We're your hosts, Madison
and Jillian, and this week we're talking about plant rants.
Also, with your personal asshole, Tyler Thrasher.
Asshole!
Yeah, I gotta say it before someone else does.
Just really honest.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, we have our second guest on the show today. We're so excited. This is so last minute. Fucking Tyler Thrasher is here.
Yeah, it still kind of feels unreal.
Oh
We were
gosh.
just listening to Greenhouse Rants a few days ago. So.
Yes. Jillian and I all day have been like, dude, he's coming over and is going to record with us. Why is he being so nice?
Oh my god.
Charity
Yeah, no,
case.
it was very last minute. I think it's last minute, 2 days ago. I was like, hey, we should all do an episode.
Yeah. Which is amazing.
Yeah, anytime.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Well, we went to your show on Saturday, which was your little pop-up event at Sacred Thistle, and that was awesome.
It was nuts.
It was fucking unreal.
It was packed.
Packed with people.
But you still took time to talk to everybody while they were
Yeah.
shopping
Which is
for your
awesome.
pieces. It's crazy.
Yeah, we unfortunately we waited in line outside, and then we got inside, met you, and I was like, "There's more line." I was like, "Well, just say hi and."
Yeah, it never
Peace
ended.
out.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of line.
Yeah, there was a lot of line. I tried to get up to the front and see the pieces and everything, but I was just like, oh my god, that's so fucking beautiful. But I was like, shit, these people are thinking I'm trying to cut in line.
Oh
I'm
my
really not. I felt so bad. I was like, all right, I think we should go, Jillian. Everyone's giving this the
Just
side
trying
eye.
to appreciate
Yeah.
Chris
trying to
Life said
appreciate.
stuff.
No, that was probably the craziest turnout I've ever had.
Yeah.
And I kept stepping outside, and I was like, surely this line's done. And it just
No, it kept going.
reloading to the back. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah, it was really cool. And that was really my first time really being exposed to a lot of your art all at once. So it was just so amazing to be a part of that.
Thanks. Yeah. And what's funny is it was a lot of talking. And I'm think I'm fairly introverted, and I have these small bursts of I need to socialize. But I decided to do this where I'm socializing with 250 people in a 2 hour span, and then I
It's like a marathon.
yeah,
and
and then I'm dead. Socially,
That's a good way
I'm
of putting
dead
it.
for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You got to
You're
recoup a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who are you?
Who am I?
For black, it was horrible question, but who is Tyler Thrasher? What do you do?
man.
We talked about your art pop up.
Yeah.
So how did you start getting into the world of art? What type of art do you do? What's your background in that?
Well, to sum it up, I think I couldn't really narrow down what I do to one thing. I like to do anything that I think of, and I like to encourage other people to do anything they think of. So I think if anything, I think I'm a nature enthusiast. I'm a scientist, an artist. I make electronic music. I grow plants. I mean, anything that I want to do or try, I'll do it and add it to my roster of fascination. So it's hard to say what it is I do or what I am.
You're creative at the end of the day.
Yeah, you just like to create.
Yeah, and it's kind of an obsession of mine, and I've always had that as a child. And even I grew up around plants. My father was a landscaper and nursery owner, and for a good chunk of my childhood, I literally lived in a greenhouse. My dad had these greenhouses with living quarters in the back, and every weekend or just during summer, I would live on a couch in this little this moss covered living quarters, and I would wake up at 7 a.m. and water the geraniums and all this stuff. So plants were almost forced into my sphere.
Yeah, that was home. Was that in Oklahoma?
Yes, it was Oklahoma.
Okay, so
yeah.
you were born and raised
Tulsa,
in
Oklahoma.
Okay,
yeah.
nice.
Born and raised.
Okay.
And then I went to school in Springfield, Missouri, and got my degree in computer animation, and then came back to
Wow.
Tulsa. So yeah.
Yeah, that's different. You didn't study horticulture, botany, or anything like that.
Okay.
Actually, I would say anything I did study, I don't use, and all things I do use, I did not study. Which seems to be how I prefer things to go.
Yeah.
But I went to school in Springfield, Missouri, and I pursued art and kind of started falling in love with the world again. So I started hiking and caving and doing all kinds of crazy outdoor stuff, which I would then incorporate into my work. And kind of near the end of my college career, I found myself revisiting my childhood fascinations. And as an adult, I swore to myself that I would like hold on to those adamantly and with fervor and never let go. So
good.
That's what I'm doing.
Even
now.
as you grow up, don't let it go.
Yeah.
And what was I about to ask? Since I feel like all artists go through evolutions in their work, and you kind of came back to being inspired by nature. Like, how did you come to crystallizing creatures?
Yeah, that's
such a
like
unique
fucking
art form.
unreal. Those pieces you make are fucking
Oh my
like
gosh.
it's incredible.
It's beautiful,
so
and it's the
cool.
only person I know of who does something like that.
It is random. It is about as random as things get. I was in school. I didn't want to do what I was doing. I didn't want to go into computer animation. And I had spent every weekend caving. Every weekend I was in a cave, looking for a cave, exploring caves, something to deal or do with caves. And eventually I found this deep fascination with the fact that I was underground, miles away from other humans. And I'd be crawling through these tight holes and coming out into these chambers full of jewels and minerals. And I would sit there in awe thinking, I am one of like a small percentage of humans that will see this. Most humans will go through their lives never having seen this little chamber, sometimes literally under their feet. I would be caving and come out in this like opening and I could hear the highway above me. And I'm like, no one, like, it tripped me out.
Insane.
It tripped me out to know that I was in one of the most beautiful, pristine areas on Earth in a world where we say everything's been done and everything's been explored.
Yeah.
And there's like people like just right above me that have no idea that I'm in a cave right beneath them.
Yeah.
So I fell in love and I thought I got to bring this back into my everyday life. And so I found ways to incorporate that into my work, which involved drawing crystals and drawing minerals. And then I thought I should grow crystals and grow minerals. And so I started doing that, and that wasn't enough. And so I went through the list of things that I'd never seen crystals on, and insects was on the top of it. So I was like, okay, Googled crystallized insect, couldn't find anything. And if I can't find it when I Google it, then I need to do it. So I did it, and then it went viral, and now it's my full-time job.
Right.
It's crazy.
Was the chemistry difficult to come up with?
Not really. So I had a background in chemistry in high school.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm mostly self-taught. So I read a lot of chemistry books and journals and papers, and I'm fascinated with chemistry. So I understood chemistry. I just needed a way to creatively, like, I didn't want to go into chemical engineering or do anything practical with chemistry. I wanted to be creative with it. Mm-hmm. So that's how I found my little niche with that.
Come on, Walter White. That's unreal. So how long does it take, like, for a piece to completely be finished?
On average, about 2 months.
Oh, wow.
Not bad.
Yeah, it depends on the chemical, it depends on the piece, it depends on how heavily crystallized I want it. But I would say on average, I expect most of my pieces to take about 2 months before I say they're done.
Okay, how many pieces do you usually do at a time?
Oh, God.
Like hundreds?
I don't even know. I couldn't tell you. It depends. Like if I have a pop-up coming up, I just do as much as I can, and then about 2 days before the pop-up, I just count it up and go, "This is all I could do. This is it."
What's your favorite piece?
Oh God,
I know, it's like what?
So I have several, and usually it's hard to pick, but usually my favorites are the ones where I like thought I knew what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I pull a piece out, and the crystals are a different shape or a different color than I like expected. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, what happened? Like I have a whole case of one-offs of pieces that did not do what I thought they should do.
Interesting.
And so I keep those. Those are my favorites, where I think I know the chemistry, and I think I'm like, okay, this is how it's going to work. This is how it's worked for the last 2 years.
And they kind of prove you're wrong.
Yeah, I pulled out, and I'm like, okay, these crystals are yellow and not green, or these crystals are like soft pink and not bright red. Like what? And so I keep those to study later, or maybe I'm like, it was a fluke thing. I can't give this away. I can't sell this.
Cool. Keeps it more of an art than a science.
Yeah, totally.
That's so.
Yeah.
I think that's so fucking cool.
It is. It's amazing.
So, and you paint as well, correct? And I saw you had pins.
I do like little enamel pins and stuff. Yeah.
You know,
Wanted one so bad, but the fucking line again. I really wanted one. I collect pins, and I was like, really wanting that one.
I have to say, I heard on an episode of Greenhouse Rants that you're coming out with cool, intricate bug pins.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen
Wait
them
a
out
minute,
yet.
what?
Okay. So these are, I'm pretty proud of
Yeah,
them.
go ahead, talk about them.
Okay.
I think it's a cool idea.
So I haven't
convulsing.
made them yet. They're gonna take like 2 months to make because
Yeah.
of course I'm having the pin company do the most. So I thought, okay, everyone's making enamel pins. Like every artist is making enamel pins. It's like easy money for artists online. And I was like, someone's got to change the pin game, like a little bit. And I was like, how can we change the pin game? And so I was thinking of these interactive pins that reminded me of like opening up a pack of Pokemon cards or incorporating a surprise into an enamel pin.
Okay.
So I have these insects I'm going to make, like brass insects, like beetles. And they have hinges on them. So the wings will open up, like flip open, to reveal an enamel design on the inside. So it's like metal on the outside.
Yeah.
And you think it's like a little insect until someone flips the wings open. And it's like this like creepy alchemy enamel design on the inside. And I have like negative space cut through. I have like a keyhole cut through on the first one. It's in brass. There's like hinges and shit. It's like the most in-depth enamel pin. And the best part is I'm not going to tell people what the design is until they get them. So you buy this pin knowing there's some sort of alchemical secret or design on the inside, and then you just have to get it in the mail and flip it open to see.
Just like Pokemon cards.
Yeah. And so I was like, man, that for me, I was like, that changes the pin game.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
You know, it makes it a little more exciting and like you're a little more invested in a piece, and it kind of takes it from like maybe the pin realm to maybe the pin and art realm a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm happy about it. I'm excited.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. And
That's
the
exciting.
pin company's like, this is going to take a really long time to do. And I was like, okay.
To do it right, but
Yeah.
it's worth it.
Yeah, and you're like, good, I'm going to challenge you motherfuckers.
Yeah.
They never heard of this before.
I've been going back and forth with the lady who I've been corresponding with, and she's like, okay, you want what now? And I was like, I need this, this, and this. She's like, okay, I think we can do it. And they made like 5 mock-ups, and they're like, okay, we nailed down how this is going to work. And I'm like, it has to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
And since we're on the topic, we've talked about all of your pieces and all of your artwork. Where can people find you and shop for it?
Wow. TylerThrasher.com. Just like that. Or Instagram, Tyler Thrasher Art. There is a Tyler Thrasher on Instagram, and I want his handle. And I keep offering to buy it off of him, and he keeps giving me that red receipt. And I'm like,
Hey,
give me
Tyler Thrasher. If you can hear us, we need that handle back.
And he calls himself the OG Tyler Thrasher. And I'm like, okay, keep rubbing it in.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh, he leaned into it.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So, and you also have a podcast.
I have a podcast, Greenhouse Rants.
And you literally go in your greenhouse
And
you rant.
That's it. That's it.
Very simple, straightforward. But I like your episodes because you kind of like go like on this like mind journey. Like you start like on a tangent and then you just like start talking about something and you get really in depth with it where you're like, wow, I don't think I really planned to talk about this.
Yeah. That's how
I
they
really
go.
get that kind of vibe as I listen to it. And I kind of like that because maybe like there's a few episodes I've listened to where it's like that's kind of like where my mind was going to with the conversation. So I like it. And you're political, you talk about plants, you kind of cover like whatever the hell you want to talk about that day, your racist neighbors, which they're long gone. They're gone.
Oh my god.
Let's talk about them.
Let's not.
We won't give them clout.
They're gone. No, it's interesting because I don't talk to people about my podcast. I just have people tell me they listen to it. And so what it feels like is like I usually record it at night, and the glare when I turn the little greenhouse light on, the glare from the scuffed up old plexi, I can't see anything outside of the greenhouse really. Just creepy when I can hear shit. Like we have a big ass possum that comes like brushing up against the glass and stuff, and we got like crazy neighbors and people that live in the neighborhood, and so I can't see anything outside the greenhouse.
Yeah.
So what it feels like sometimes is I'm literally sitting in like a black void screaming into nothing, and all I have is this little black recorder. Like I joke about that in the intro, but that's how it feels. So I started incorporating Instagram Live to some of them so I don't feel like I'm alone, because sometimes I'm like, I think I'm crazy. Because it's just me. I can't see anything outside, and I'm like, I'm just by myself.
Just ranting. Really?
Out loud. Like, really loud.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I need to feel like I'm not alone, and I don't feel so crazy.
Right.
But it's great. I feel like you have to get that confirmation every time somebody mentions the podcast to you.
I'm like, oh, wow, okay, you listened to it, and you didn't think us, or I don't know. Maybe.
Right. How big is the greenhouse?
It's not big. It's
tiny.
10 by 12.
Okay.
So, which is great for succulents because I grow really small succulents.
Little babies.
So I can fit in like 700 succulents.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
In a greenhouse that size.
Well, let's talk about plants.
Let's talk about plants.
How many plants do you have?
Oh, God.
If you had to guess.
Do seedlings count?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of count it how you want, because I know some people
'Cause
are
I
like,
have
well, if it's
counted.
all in
Yeah,
one pot,
people
it's
do
one
it-
plant,
yeah.
you know, or...
Cuttings, like, all that shit.
God.
However you want to, like...
Last year, I've grown so many things since last year. I counted, and it was like 650 plants.
Hell yeah.
I think I have easily maybe... I think easily I may have doubled that, which I could quadruple it because I have a whole like chest full of seeds that I just don't have room to grow.
Yeah.
I just don't have room. So I have a lot of plants.
That's so exciting. That's a chest of potential.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What would you say your favorite plant is?
My favorite plant.
Favorite plant.
Oh God, succulent or
Whatever you have in your collection.
you know, my favorite plant, and I do not own it, and I love the mystery behind it.
Ooh, okay.
It's the Crassula nemorosa. And it's a part of the Crassula genus, which is a very common...
Yeah, they're
I'm
all
gonna
over the
Google.
place.
Yeah.
Really common cover. They grow like weeds.
Yeah. Well, Crassula nemorosa, it's a small, like, juicy little leaf. They kind of look like if you pictured like a little clover or an oxalis on like an alien planet.
Ooh.
But I like them because they don't look like any other Crassula I've ever seen. And then apparently, I haven't looked into the science behind it thoroughly because I can't get my hands on any or talk to anyone who grows them, but they absorb radiation like better than most plants.
Wow.
Now, there's some speculation coming out about all this stuff about plants absorbing shit and absorbing amplifying your air quality, and NASA came out and was like, technically you would need 4,000 plants in a small room to do what your air conditioner does.
Right.
But the Crassula nemorosa, that's one of my favorites because I can't get my hands on it. I don't know who has it. And I did buy bulbs from one person, and they never came up. And they are notoriously hard to grow. So it's I like it, and it's on my challenge list. And most people don't even know it. Like, it's one of those weird plants that you tell people about, and they're like, I've never fucking heard of that. And you could go your whole life as a grower and plant person never having heard of this plant.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures right now on Google, and they're like... They're kind of funky.
Yeah.
Well,
Love
if
a good
anybody
funky
has
plant.
a Crassula
Nemorosa.
nemorosa, you know who to send it to.
Please.
Please send it his way.
That's
Putting
pretty
it
cool.
out there.
Yeah.
So what about... I always like to ask questions like favorites and things like that. So then that one is also your like wish list.
But what is your most rare plant that you own? And that's
Most rare.
subjective.
That
so
is
that
so
can be
subjective.
a plant that you had on a wish list for a long time until
And you
you
got that, and you were like,
or...
fuck yeah.
Okay, so I have two different...
Okay.
I have two different categories for this, and then I want to hear your opinions on rare plants.
Okay, yeah.
Because mine have shifted entirely. Entirely. So rare, as in some asshole would probably steal it if I turned my back to them. Probably my Monstera, the sport, the sport mutated one that I have. Yeah, I've had people. We can rant about this shit. I have fended off some fucky people with just this plant. I'm like, how can one plant bring in so many fucky people that I previously had nothing to do with? So rare in that case, like rare as in somebody could get like a stupid amount of money for it, probably that plant. Rare as in like critically endangered and you won't find it in habitat anymore. I would probably say, oh man, that's such a good question. Oh shit, I need to think about that for a second. I need to think about that. I have so many succulents that I would consider rare, but I've changed my personal definition of rare. A lot of them I conophytum. So I have a Conophytum angelicae, and they have these nice little cubic, wrinkly leaves. That one is, most Conophytum are endangered in habitat because people keep poaching them. Other ones, the Lithops optica rubra, it's not super rare, but I consider it rare because you will probably never see it in habitat.
Out and about.
Mining companies took over the farmland where they were endemic, and there's none left.
I would love to ask your opinion then on the role of collectors like yourself in terms of conservation. Like, do you see yourself as playing a big role in that?
Yes, I've talked a little bit about how I think like this knack to collect, because it's weird. It's a weird thing us as animals that we do, where we like let's
hoard really.
What the
have
fuck?
like one of each.
Yeah, what the fuck? What? There's no like point to it until you think about the benefit to the plants. And I don't know that I'm playing a role so much as like the plants are using me to play a role in their conservation.
Yeah.
And I think I'm playing a pretty decent role, except there are issues. So there are people who grow conophytum that are no longer in habitat. And they have these ideas of maybe reincorporating them into habitat. But then there's all these other botanists that are like, well, technically it's a little like genetically different from the ones that were lost from habitat. If you put it back, will it acclimate? Right. Is it even the same? And how will that genetic difference affect all the other plants around it? Can you ever reestablish something that was lost in nature?
And is it our place to try?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I like to think maybe I'm conserving it for people to see, because maybe the pessimist in me is thinking, yeah, these are all going to be gone from habitat, so let's just have a little museum or I guess a memorial.
Well, I think with all the shit that's been going on, like in Australia and then last year in the Amazon, like we just saw just shit hitting the fucking fan. And I think what I saw was, we were like, oh my gosh, this is why we have this is why we have these in our homes. A lot of people go out of their way to, conserve and share and help educate people. But there are those people who are like, I fucking have it and you don't. And guess what? It was in the Amazon. It's gone. And I have the last one in the world. Fuck all you. And guess what? It is $10,000. Do you have that money? No, but I do. Fuck you. Gosh. And I live in a penthouse in fucking like Sweden or some shit like that. All those people live in Europe. Like all those people, all the big plant collectors are all in fucking Europe.
I don't know about that. We've met some of them. I don't know if that's totally true. There's there are people everywhere that want plants and want to have that status symbol if it's something rare.
Yeah.
I want to pose something. So
please,
let's just talk about the fact that we have any plants in our home, because I'm sitting here shit talking people who poach, and we wouldn't have any plants at all if it wasn't for poachers. Even the ones that you don't need to take from habitat. Someone somewhere at some point in history took that plant and tried to sell it to some royalty or some wealthy asshole as something new and exotic, made a fuck ton of money, and then now we have it in Home Depot. Which is why I love all this shit about all these rare plants, as if it's like something new and exciting. I'm like, no, fucking white people have been doing this shit to plants as far back as we can go. And if we want to get really real, indigenous people and people of color have fallen victim to that over and over and over, so people could make a killing on a fucking orchid. Like orchids that you find at Home Depot, they used to be sold for like hundreds of thousands of in current currency. And it blows my mind that it's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point to think about, because you don't think but that can, it's said about almost anything in history, you know what I mean? Colonizing, coming over, raping, pillaging, taking, right? That's what history really is in most of the world. And it's actually, when we did our genus episode a few weeks ago, we talked about philodendron, and something I didn't know was philodendron. I thought philodendron were indigenous to Asia and Australia. They're not. I didn't know that. They're indigenous to South America and the Americas, and that's it. So I think in South Africa too is where you can find some. It's not in Northern Africa, but I didn't know that. And it's so interesting thing about them just crossing, and because you would think okay, this plant comes from this part of the world. So and it's interesting to make that connection now with it. I didn't really think about that. Is that what was happening during that time period?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I almost want to take it to the next step, because I do agree that it was definitely part of colonization to take those plants and basically sit in awe of their beauty and bring them into, their homes and palaces and whatever, and really benefit off of that. We can acknowledge that now and understand that was a part of the history, and that all these houseplants that are popular now were taken, from another people. How do you address that and start to change that? Because a lot of those countries still aren't necessarily benefiting from the houseplant craze that's been taking over Europe and the US.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, and the poaching, here's the thing, the poaching's still happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I just saw the other day, there was this Korean couple that got busted trying to smuggle $30 million worth of succulents from Southern Africa.
Oh, wow.
And they they went to a national park and just cleared this one little population, just scraped it clean.
That's just heartbreaking.
And you can't reacclimate those plants. And when they got busted, they got fined. And then I didn't know I was friends with one of the poachers on Facebook from a succulent group.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know. And then I saw him post his mugshot, all this stuff. And he wrote, if given the chance, I would do it again. Proudly.
What?
He was like, I would do anything for these beautiful plants. Just did not, so infatuated with these plants that just completely missed the devastation.
It wasn't even about the money for him. It was genuinely.
I think it's about the money.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's beauty and money. And let's be real. There are beautiful plants that don't cost a lot of money, and a lot of plant people don't want to admit they're beautiful because they don't cost a lot of money. And there's a lot of fucking ugly plants out there that cost a lot of money that people praise their beauty, and I'm like, do you think they're beautiful, or are you about to make a killing on eBay?
Right.
I don't know. I've seen that back and forth. And the philodendron spiritus sancti. That's everyone calls it the fucking mega unicorn bullshit. Mythological. It's not mythological. It's an endangered plant. And people praise it for its rarity. And I'm like, well, it's only rare because its whole population was decimated. So assholes like you could brag about having it on your Instagram. Totally. And no one acknowledges that. And I'm thinking, I'm just like, if we're going to have these plants, we need to acknowledge how we got them and the communities that were affected. And we don't even know what indigenous communities in Southern America were affected. So some mining or farming company could come in and clear out the area and maybe collect a few plants on their way.
And even if they weren't negatively affected, didn't positively benefit either off of something from their own home,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we can address it. There's not much we can do about it except, if we see someone on Instagram bragging about a plant that looks like it was habitat, field collected, we need to be saying some shit. Because I've seen some people brag about their copia poa, and I'm like, you totally fucking, you can tell, there's some plants, some succulents that you can tell are habitat grown, just based on how they cork or how they age. There's euphorbia that I've seen in people's, on their benches, and I'm like, you did not grow that in a greenhouse. That has every indication that it was grown out in habitat. And we're seeing more and more of it, and I think we're going to see more and more of it with the aeroid craze.
Absolutely.
People are going to be planning their fucking trips down to Costa Rica and just scraping the trees clean.
It's already happened. They're cutting elbows out of people's yards in Hawaii and stuff. Jesus it's really Christ. Insane.
Oh, man. Really?
Yeah, because they use them for landscaping and stuff over there, and people will find them chopped right out of their yard, because it's valuable.
Have you heard about this whole issue and controversy around, peat moss?
Not a whole lot, and I've had a few people bring it to my attention, but fill me in.
Okay, so the majority, about 80% of where we source our peat moss comes out of Canada. And the rest comes out of Ireland.
Okay.
And it's called peat bogs. So peat moss is grown, it's basically sphagnum moss, and it takes millions of years to get at least 2 millimeters.
What the fuck?
Of it, right? So a lot of these companies that harvest it say we ethically source it by cutting what the plant can grow, the moss can grow at the rate. It's bullshit. Okay. Because it doesn't grow that fast. Now, maybe they've found a way to make it grow a little bit quicker, but there's a lot of conspiracy around that. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So these environments that are natural, that have been around for millions of years, we are sourcing peat moss for our houseplants. So people are trying to find alternatives. Did you see that episode of Shark Tank? This guy went on Shark Tank. love that show. Okay. Yeah. And he created a product called pit moss. And it's just basically shredded paper, and it's a little bit more fibrous, and it's just recycled paper, but it does the exact thing that peat moss does.
Yeah.
It's a way more beneficial. It doesn't hold as much water as peat moss does. So you're not going to see like root rot. You're not going to see fungus gnats in your houseplants. So there's, I mean, you know, talking about going into like environments and just poaching, like we found this source and we're like taking from this environment, and a lot of companies are actually taking more from these bogs than they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's the International Peat Moss Society that exists. They they had to come up with it, but for a good purpose, and they really help keep these companies in check. But there's a lot of companies, and it's all speculation on who it is, but that go in and just like fuck these environments over.
Yeah, well, and it's always interesting because like that, like people are adding this peat moss to their houseplants, and it doesn't serve them any. It does not serve humans any sort of survivability. There's no biological incentive for harvesting peat moss.
We
for our houseplants.
don't need it.
Yeah, but we need it for our plants, and it brings up that question that I've been asking, which is like, how much of a plant person are you? Like, are you enough of a plant person that you will like recognize how your obsession is affecting actual plants in their habitat, and you'll find lines to draw, like cut back on your house plants so that you can conserve and protect plants out in habitat, or are you so much a plant person that anything in nature doesn't fucking matter as long as it can come in your home? You know, there's like two spheres here that like on this teeter-totter of bullshit, which I think there's one side that is absolutely right, and I'm on the wrong. We're all on the wrong. I think anyone who has houseplants in their home, we need to be asking these questions. And I have a whole greenhouse full of shit that I'm like, no.
Do you think just having houseplants puts you on the wrong side? Because the idea is almost that we have this appreciation for nature.
I think there's a fine line. I think if you have houseplants, it is. I think if you have houseplants and you take care of them, it shows that you have an appreciation for nature. But then it's like, once you have that I think once the human gets that appreciation, that payback from having a healthy plant, it can either go one of two ways, where you're like, okay, time to have a garden, time to think about how my plant raising abilities can benefit nature, not just my indoors. And so you see these growers that have these massive gardens or community gardens, or they're growing things that are native, that, you know, benefit like pollinators and stuff.
Yeah.
Or you have the person who's like, I need every fucking plant in the world, and I'm going to support poachers on eBay, and I'm going to plan my own trips and start scraping these habitats clean because I love plants that much.
I think for those people too, it's about the number for them.
Yeah.
They're just like, I have this many, and the number, no matter how many it is, they'll never be happy because it's always about more, and consuming more. And that goes into total consumerism. We could talk about that all day, but we'll move on. Okay. We'll move on. Stop fucking with the environment, everybody, is our point.
Please.
Appreciate from an environmental standpoint. So I would love to talk about more like specific things that we've seen in the community. And I hate using the word community, but it's still the community. So like, I think it's more like the dark side. I should say that. Let me clarify. Like, so Monstera albos.
Yeah.
They're huge right now. Whether it's any type of variegated Monstera deliciosa, like people are shitting their pants for, and with good reason. They're fucking gorgeous, right? And we see them. We see, you know, the hashtag Monstera Monday, and it's just all variegated Monsteras, and you're just like, oh my god, I don't have that. Why don't I have that? I need to have it. It's like a status symbol.
Yes.
So, what are your viewpoints? What's your history? Like, I know there's a lot of issues of people like selling shitty, faulty ones online, and they're like
every minute.
Yeah. And I would love to hear about your sport mutation as well, because I'm sure you specifically dealt with this in terms of that plant.
Yeah. Well, so I want to ask everyone, like, do we even like this plant? Like, I want to seriously ask. There are so many variegated plants out there. There are so many ornamental variegates, and I want to ask us, do we actually? Some people worship this. It seems like we're all worshiping this fucking plant. It's just mind numbing. Every nursery you go into, every fucking nursery I go into, someone's getting off the phone with someone who's going, "Do you have the variegated Monstera?" Everyone's losing their minds, and I want to stop us all and go, do we actually fucking like this plant? I don't know, because I got one about 4 years ago before the craze picked up, and I walked into a very well-known nursery in Missouri, and I watched so many people walk past it. And I was like, well, that's weird. I've never seen a variegated one of these. And at the time, I didn't know much about tropicals, so I called it a split-leaf philodendron. I was like, oh, variegated split-leaf philodendron. Everyone was walking past it. It was $50 for one that was as tall as I was.
Wow.
And I was like, for me at the time, I was like, $50 for a plant? Oh my God. And so I called my wife and I was like, don't hate me. Don't hate me. I'm going to spend $50 on a plant. She's like, why the fuck would you spend $50 on a plant? I'm like, it's just pretty. I got it. We had a house fire. I lost it.
Yeah.
But I want to ask, do we care about this plant, or are we getting sucked into this like social currency that's Instagram, where we see someone has one, so we have to have one? Oh fuck, we see 3,000 people posted about it on Monday. Well, I gotta kind of get one, and I'll spend $500 on a fucking stick for it. You know, I just sometimes want to ask, like, do we like this plant, or is it like we just want to be like the Joneses sort of effect here? Mm-hmm. I think it's a fine plant. I don't think it's like more majestic or godly than any other plant. It's just, it happens to have been Instagrammable. And we had enough fucking influencers post selfies with it that everyone was like, okay, well, if they have it, I must have it. And
right.
So, and then it drives people crazy. Like, I see growers that are very, very skilled growers that cannot afford this plant, who I'm thinking, like, here's what happens. I see people who can afford this plant, and I watch them every week. Their plant wilts more and more. Yeah. It gets more and more brown. And then just posting about how they've had to cut it back for the last 12 months. And I'm like, man, if that just ended up in this person's hands, that plant would be flourishing. But they don't have $300 to spend on that. And so I just kind of think it's a bullshit plant. I think it's really warping how we view plants and how we view any botany, anything at all.
Yeah.
I think it's like absolute greed. It's like people driving around in their fucking Mercedes, but it's a plant.
Yeah. Do you think it's a trend like that we've seen with other house plants like pileas and pink princesses, where every few months there's going to be a new plant that kind of takes over? Or do you think monsteras are their own category because of the price tag and the greed that kind of comes along with them? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's this one's a little different. So the pilea, what's funny is I got a pilea whenever they were huge.
Yeah.
And they were going on, one tiny little cutting was going on eBay for $120. And I had a friend gift me mine. And when I posted about it, my inbox was full of people just trying to throw money at me. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I made like 20 of these in 3 months. This cannot be worth it.
They propagate like weeds.
Yeah. Well, and the same with Monstera, relatively speaking. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is a trend because we have enough, people posting selfies with their pretty faces and this fucking plant calling it the it plant. You know, there's enough people calling it the it plant that's kind of giving like this weird permanent status that I'm like, the only thing that will undo this plant is when Home Depot starts carrying them.
Which we think is going to happen.
Yes.
Well, Costa Farms has ties ready to go, so they're going to be coming out in the next year or so.
And what's going to happen is everyone's going to rush to Home Depot, buy them all, and flip them, and then everyone's going to be like, okay, well, this is the only way I can get this plant, and then Costa Farms is going to be like, oh, we got another shipment coming in. And eventually, people are going to just start beating the plant flippers to Home Depot, and we're going to come back to like a sensible realm for plant prices.
Yeah. Right. We actually just saw that happen with the Raven ZZs that came through.
Yeah,
that just happened. Yeah, we talked about that in our Plant Armageddon episode.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It just like, that was like the day from like Crazyville, seeing like grown ass adults react in that way in the span of a few hours, like going.
It was like 24 hours from hell. Everybody was hounding down Home Depot employees trying to find Raven ZZs and posting them on the marketplace same day.
Yeah,
at a higher price.
This was like a few weeks ago. They like landed in Home Depot here in Denver, and people lost their fucking shit. And I played into it. Yeah. I was like, "CZ Raven, watch everybody! We're out here trying to get all these." Oh my! I like played into it. I was like, "This one doesn't have it. I'm gonna go to the next one." Like I went fucking crazy. I bought into it, and then afterwards, I was like, why the fuck did I do that?
It's weird. Like,
I got like an adrenaline rush from it. Like I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm doing it for the people. I'm gonna find these. I'm gonna let everybody know. And then like afterwards, I was like, why did you do that, Madison? You're a grown ass adult. Like
and I've bent over for like crazy plant things. Like it's weird what Instagram and social media can make us do, especially with plants, where we all want to be a part of this thing. It's just funny when it's about plants, because I always picture plant people being wholesome and nurturing, and then I see how we all like turn into zombies and vampires, and I'm like, guys, we're all losing our fucking minds here.
It has a lot to do, like you said, with Instagram. I think like that instant gratification plays a huge role into it. I think influencers play a huge part into it.
I feel like any community that gets to this size or continues to grow is going to have, you're always going to have negative people come in and kind of shift the community.
Yeah.
On that note, because I know we just mentioned Costa Farms, how do you feel about, you know, personal sellers that are flipping albos or flipping half moons or creams or, you know, all kinds of crazy mixes and mutations that they can't guarantee, in my opinion? But
I think people can do whatever the fuck they want until they start taking advantage of growers or buyers that don't know better. And of course, it's on the buyer to educate themselves.
Absolutely.
But what happens is when we see a lot of individual growers selling plants that are unhealthy, unrooted, or just not what they claim they are, it builds this trend. So now what we're seeing now on eBay, you'll see more wet fucking sticks than actual healthy plants. There was a point where I could Google or go on eBay and find a variegated monstera with 4 to 5 leaves for $100. And almost overnight that changed because people started selling nodes. And
that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, people sell nodes. People sell pieces of plants as if they're the plant themselves. And what they do is they lower the standard. And so I'm looking at it and I'm like, you know, there are growers that have spent decades perfecting this and doing this really well, and then someone in their like fucking like studio loft in California, it's like, yeah, I have a couple of nodes for sale, $500 each. It lowers the standard to where I'm like, if we keep this up, we will be able to walk into a nursery and you'll just see a table full of nodes. Like, no more plants. We're all getting nodes, and that's happened. I've walked into a nursery in where was that? Chicago. It was outside of Chicago, and they had variegated monstera. I went back the next year, and they were selling like unrooted leaves.
Wow, I didn't realize that was bleeding over into nurseries.
Yeah, because these nurseries are like, well, if this is what people are willing to pay for, and I'm like, guys, stop buying this shit. Like just wait like a year. Stop. You don't need it right now. And every single one of you that buys a node, buys a wet stick, buys a rotten lump, you're just lowering an acceptable standard for actual businesses to say, well, if that's what they're willing to pay, hey, better on us.
And to the businesses, I'm just going to say, because I know Gabriella Plants, Shane from Gabriella Plants, specifically said, you know, I'm not here to price gouge for princesses because they're in demand. I'm here to make long-lasting customers. Yeah. So I'm going to provide a quality product. Like, I feel like businesses, just as a side note, because this is separate from individual sellers, but should try to maintain a higher standard that people can expect and continue to expect even after the fad's passed.
Yeah, and Shane's he's cool as fuck.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, his ethics. There are so many plant people who have such solid ethics.
Yep.
And I mean, like, thank goodness there's like really good growers, but we are lowering the standard drastically. But what I love is I'm a succulent person. And so all the attention, all the love, all the
all those tropics.
Obsession, all the obsession with succulents is gone. There are growers I knew that made a living selling succulents 2 years ago, and they're not selling shit now because everyone wants houseplants and tropicals. And I'm like, I still love succulents. So I'm able to buy succulents that were like $300 for like $10 now.
Hey, I'm over here on my euphorbia kick, loving life.
So I'm like, y'all keep doing that, and I'm going to go ahead and fill my greenhouse up with.
We're excited because Reroot's opening this week, and she's can now sell cactus and succulents, and she's going to get fucking cool shit. And I'm so excited to go. It opens on Friday. I'm so fucking pumped. I'd like to flip the switch, though. You were talking about growers and, like, being ethical and having a high quality standard when it comes to plants. Pink Congo.
Yeah.
Okay. So people put that chemical X or whatever shit in the plant. It grew, and people were like, oh my God, it's naturally growing pink. What the fuck? And sellers and growers weren't really like clear and like, hey, this is natural, and led people to believe that that was a real plant, and we're gonna charge you $150 for this 4-inch little pink Congo. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's growers out there who are large scale who don't also have a lot of transparency.
No,
do you know what I mean?
So I think that like chaotic, neutral anarchist in me loves that happened. I wish
woke a lot of people up.
I wish I did that, because I know how they did it. I've done it in my lab. It's not hard at all.
Yeah.
And I really wish I was the one that did. Oh, no, because everyone would try to freaking crucify me. But
oh my God, yeah, no.
I wish I was like secretly behind that.
Interesting, yeah.
Just because it's fucking hilarious. Because what you saw is the same people who are bragging about their Mercedes plants, bragging about the IT plant. They're all the ones that bought that plant before anyone else could, because they had the money.
Right.
They bragged about it to up the price. So then they bought more and then flipped them on eBay. And then when they found out they're fake, what happened is all the people who like saved up their income to buy that plant came after the Instagram people who were selling them, saying, you sold me this like fake synthesized bullshit. And they're like, oh, we didn't know. And then everyone's like, oh, that's when we realized that the big plant people on Instagram, a lot of them don't actually know shit about plants. They just fall for the same like marketing schemes as any other person.
They're the popular kids.
Yeah. And we find out they're just as dumb as the rest of us. Like, I love that, because you had these big idols that were like, we are the plant gods, and then you find out, oh no, you are just as dumb as the rest of us. You just had a little more money before we did. I fucking love that happened, because it definitely woke a lot of people up. It definitely did. And I was like, of course, you guys are spending thousands of dollars on variegated plants. Of course someone was going to try to make a fake variegated plant.
Of course. It was bound to happen eventually. And they're not the only ones that have tried it. They were just incredibly successful.
And there are people who are really good at making variegated plants that aren't fake. They grow them in their labs. I'm working with 2 scientists in Denver now to tissue culture and find the gene that turns on variegation, so we can make all kinds of crazy variegated plants at affordable prices. That's going to piss a lot of people off, which gives me all the more reason to want to do it.
I wish you were here for our variegated episode that we just recorded, because like we really talked about like the different genes and mutations, and like even like with our research, we like, I understand it, but like I would have loved to have picked your brain more about it, because like we went into detail, but yeah, if it's like, so I guess my question is like, do we know what that gene is in certain things, like at this point? Like, I would figure we do. I assumed we did. But maybe that's me being ignorant about that. From
the molecular biologists I've talked to in my research, we don't necessarily know exactly whatever gene that is that turns on variegation. And a lot of plants haven't been fully sequenced. That's the thing. So, the plants that have been fully sequenced are things that are like crop plants, like mustard or wheat or corn, because we want to know the genetic sequence so we can alter it to make better corn and better crops. Right. No one has the funds to like support better variegated plants until probably now, if all these Instagram influencers would chip in and maybe fund some research.
That market just blew up in the last couple of years.
But there's so much money. Like I just see like thousands of dollars just constantly. I'm like, why don't we just take some of that and like fund some research? Yeah. But they don't want that, because then once we know how to flip on variegation, it's going to tank.
Totally. eBay's like a bummer to go on.
Yeah.
I stopped going on it. Yeah. It's just a bummer. I bought my booby cactus on it, and like I was like, okay, that's all I can do.
I saw a variegated one of those at a cactus.
Don't say that to me.
So cool.
See,
it was
so
cool. It was amazing.
Don't say that to me. I'm just like that thing.
Variegated boobies. It was good. It was so cool.
Amazing.
But yeah, I think like I don't know that we fully understand variegation, like what causes it or why a plant would decide to turn it on or why some seedlings do it. Like I have a plant that I'm growing from seed, and it was a hybrid between 2 parent plants, none of which are variegated, and it was a special hybrid I was making that doesn't exist yet, and 50% of the seedlings came up variegated.
Oh wow.
So I waited another year, like the next season, to try it with another seed pod. Again, 50% of the seeds came up variegated, and it got me thinking, like, what genetically? Because at that point, it's genetic. It's not a random mutation. It's in the genes. If 50%,
well, you recreated it.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, like, what is in the genetic code of these seeds that's making half of them, not just 1 or 2, half of them come up variegated.
Very interesting.
So, there's some reason. We just don't fully understand, and no one's. I guess there's no scientific like advancement to be said there. It doesn't benefit plants or crops. Variegation is actually a horrible thing to have happen to you in habitat.
Right.
So people are like, who cares?
Right. So then we shouldn't be buying seeds online from people in China who claim it's a variegated pink princess and 100 seeds for $5. You got yourself a pink princess. Oh, wait.
Oh, my God.
6 months later, it's fucking celery.
I did want to mention that, though, because you just mentioned that you got 50% variegated seeds. So for people listening.
So, yes, there are chances where variegation is genetic. We know that there are plants, even in habitat, that have benefited from variegation. There's a type of euphorbia in Oklahoma that, like, it's not variegated until it flowers, and the upper flowers, it's called I can't remember the scientific name. The common name is snow on the mountain. And the upper leaves are variegated. Oh, wow. And I found this field of it, and I was like, well, that's interesting. Like, genetically, it just turns on variegation in the middle of its flowering process.
In Ohio?
Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma. Oh, that makes sense. In Oklahoma. How cool.
Yeah, near the Panhandle. And so there are situations where you can have variegation be genetic. It's not very common. Yes, do not buy variegated plants seeds on eBay.
From Sally.
Or from Sally on Etsy.
Yeah.
But there are also variegated plants like I bought some seedlings from a variegated astrophytum, and it's been bred for so many decades that it almost entirely all the germination, all the seedlings come up variegated because someone sowed some seeds, 3 of them came up variegated, so they crossed them, and that variegation is stable in the progeny. So there are cases, but if it's a trendy plant and someone's selling you a big bag of seeds for $10 that they come up variegated, use your fucking brain.
Monsteras are not one of those plants, as far as I know.
Yeah, like just use your fucking brain. That's all you know.
Oh my God, could you imagine? Like the look on people's faces? They're like, "Oh, I'm so excited," and they germinate. They go through they do the work of germinating, growing, all of it, and then 6 months later, they're like, "What? You're not a fucking pink princess."
Like, you'll see their posts come up on Facebook. Like, what did I grow? I got these seeds from Wish a few months ago.
Yeah,
we should do that. We should actually do that and see what we get.
Kind of grass we get.
I think that'd be kind of fun, actually.
Well, and so one of my patrons messaged me, and they're like, "Yeah, I got some Monstera seed. I don't know if it's real or not." And I was like, "Where'd you get it?" And she was like, "Etsy." And I was like, "It's probably not real." She sewed them. They came up real.
Oh, good.
And I was like, and it was just, and I asked her where she got them, and it was like a grower in Texas. And so there are rare cases. Yeah. Read the reviews and look at the photos, because a lot of the big scam companies use the same Pinterest. If it looks like a photo you'd find on Pinterest, keep scrolling.
Right.
If it's trending, poke it with a 6-foot stick and move on.
Be an educated buyer. Look into it.
Yeah.
And on that note, let's talk Adansonia and Oblique, because I feel like that comes down to being an educated buyer as well.
God.
Yeah, that shit's crazy. I really didn't know too much about it. I knew what an Anisonii was, but Oblique I wasn't really super educated on. But I watched Kaylee Ellen's video about it, and that's where I was like, oh shit, people need to wake the fuck up about this. There's a huge difference, and people are selling Anisonii and calling it Oblique. I went to a nursery here in Denver, and they called it Oblique. They were all labeled Oblique, and they were selling Anisonii, little 4-inch pots. This was before Anisonii were really saturated in the market.
Yeah.
And they were selling them for $160, little 4-inch pots. It's the Oblique, and people were losing their shit. They're like, oh my God, it's an Oblique. But looking at it, it's so Oblique. To me, that one is almost like the unicorn plant.
Yeah.
It's never Oblique.
It's never Oblique. Do you know what I mean? We're always I think a lot of people have that disappointment, but also I think it's so rare in the case because again, going back, its environment has been destroyed. Only collectors have it now. That's the only way you can get it.
Yeah.
I think Enid.
She has some.
One.
She has some.
Probably some. She's such a good grower. She doesn't have just one. She probably has some.
I've seen the one that she has growing in one of her greenhouses.
Yeah, I think she doesn't post about it too often because she knows that people will be like, oh my God, let me buy it from you.
Well, so that's the other thing too. With the Oblique, people started freaking the fuck out over this plant it was something new. And then I saw, I have a lot of old grower friends. I have a friend who, he's 60, and he's had an Oblique for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
It took over his front porch. I will not say his name. And he lives in a place where he can grow it outside. it took over his front porch.
Cool.
He posted a photo of his porch covered in oblique, and he was like, I do not understand this. What is happening? He's like, this plant has been in cultivation for like 30 years, but what happened is a few conservatories, theirs went missing. And so almost across the board, everyone was looking at Instagram, looking at all these crazy plant people who would steal from a public institution just so they can brag about their like newly acquired plant. What? So almost everyone who had an oblique in a public institution just locked them up. I visited like 3 conservatories who have them, really big, mature ones, like that you don't see. You see the little tiny ones on Instagram. Big, mature, flowering oblique, and they all, and I read somewhere someone like a horticulturist was like, yeah, there's like, he's like, I have a list of 40 conservatories that have this in their collection, and the second this whole oblique thing happened and they saw what people were willing to buy them for, they all were like, we tell nobody we have these. Wow. Because they don't trust people. They don't trust plant people. So when I hear stuff like, you know, that these plants are super rare and all stuff, I'm thinking like, well, again, some asshole, some scientist or somebody went to the habitat, took field notes, brought it back with them because they thought it was pretty with no intentions of selling it. They grew it out, shared it with their friends who have conservatories or collections. It got passed around. Instagram finds out and they all go, okay, guys, lock them up. Because people have like broken into greenhouses to steal plants. They've stolen them from scientific institutions. I know a couple of growers on Instagram who have stolen plants from botanic gardens. And
shit.
No, yeah.
That shit pisses me off.
People will go to weird and very invasive and morally fucked up links just to brag about a plant that they have.
What a shame, because I'm from Miami and I know that there are a lot of phenomenal greenhouses down there, but my mom, who lives down there, could never find any. And I told her, that's so strange. I'm sure that you guys get incredible imports. And I saw a post going around on Instagram recently that a lot of those nurseries have told people to not post about them online anymore because they get enough business from word of mouth and people in the area. And they already had a couple that were stolen from. And so they don't want to be listed online at all. Yeah. They don't want anybody to know that they're there or what kind of plants they have. And they want to keep it in the community that already knows about them. Yeah. I didn't realize that was happening with botanic gardens as well. That's such a shame.
Well, and there's like, even when the succulent craze was happening, there was a really big Haworthia guy, I think in Japan. And he was really well known, grew some amazing Haworthia and sold them for very affordable prices. His collection was probably well like worth more than $10 million. Like, he had a world-class collection.
I mean, it's invaluable at that point.
Yeah. Well, somebody in the middle of the night didn't just like steal from his greenhouse. He went on vacation. Someone went up to his greenhouse, removed all the side panels, and just gutted all the benches. Oh. They didn't even look at what they grabbed. They just knew how much his collection was worth. They filled trash bags with his potted plants. When he got back, one of his greenhouses was completely, the side of it was dismantled and there were empty pots everywhere. He was posting about it. People who knew him said he like wept and cried and was just heartbroken for months because he grew these plants for decades. And some asshole who didn't put in the work, want to make a quick buck or brag about the plants they had, gutted his greenhouse.
And it's irreplaceable. That's part of who he was, you know. And
you don't have that many. He was old enough. He could never pick. He would be dead before he could even get close to picking that back up.
Right.
Yeah. What the fuck?
And so that's like a lot of my frustration comes from people who don't just cross this weird line of like, you know, is it socially acceptable to brag about something you spent money on, knowing you're going to make all your followers want something that most of them can't afford at the moment. There's some weird high school mentality there. It's like bragging about your new fucking shoes that you know, like a lot of the poorer kids can't afford, and you go sporting them and making everyone jealous. Yeah. It's like, is that really what you want to contribute to society? And then we have the people who will straight up like endanger other people's property, you know. And there's been times where people will break onto your property. Like I have a friend in California, and he had his friend come and pull off a guy who broke onto his property with a weapon to try to get his like rare succulents, and he had to get his bodyguard friend to hold him down and pull him off of his property. People just get fucking crazy with plants.
Yep.
I don't get it. It's like people just like will do very, very illegal things for plants.
I've told Madison before, anytime there's money, crazy people come running.
Yep.
Yeah, people are fucking nuts. That's so frustrating because like I know big thing that's happening right now is like going and like anywhere from like Home Depot to like your local plant shop and like or like your botanical gardens, other people's homes. I know people are going around with their shears and they're taking cuttings of it. Like,
oh my god!
What I forget, somebody called it something. It was like cut sporting or
I've heard
cut
propagating.
Yeah.
Propagating, like crop it, like no, copagating, like copping something.
Yep, that's what it is.
Copagating.
That's what it is. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You fucking stole.
Yeah, and like people have been posting. There's like a Oh, did it stop? Testing. Oh, nope, it didn't stop.
I'm going to text my wife really quick.
Please.
And just tell her she's driving out the baby. Like maybe 9 more minutes.
Yeah, cool.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I could talk forever, but
yeah. No, you're good. Babies come first.
Mm-hmm.
Babies come first.
Especially when they say I love you for the first time. Anything you want.
Okay. Or I offered I could Uber to them, so we'll keep talking. I might just so we don't like fuck up the feed, fill you in on what she says.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
Okay. She said 12 minutes. Okay. Is
Sick.
that enough time?
Perfect. That's plenty.
You're fine.
Okay.
That's
okay.
plenty.
I don't want to like fuck up your podcast.
But I definitely do want to hear your thoughts on representation then, because I do want to give you some time to kind of...
Yeah. Let's
talk about that.
Oh, man. Well, okay. I mean, what we prepped about, like, obviously you two have more sway in the topic that you wanted to talk about than I do. So you should open up and then...
Well, we're really just talking about representation in the plant community, and he's really just referring to the fact that we're women, and so, you know, oftentimes we don't have the same strength in our voice. But you're also a minority in the community as a straight guy, and even as a black guy, it's really uncommon.
Yeah.
Most people that we meet are gay white boys, which is why we try very hard to kind of promote and encourage following other accounts and other plant people in the community that kind of break that mold a little bit. So I definitely want to hear about your experiences, because they hear about our experiences every episode.
Oh yeah.
So a little bit, you know, about your experience with women in the community and your own place in the community.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit to say on women in the community and a lot to say on being black in the plant community. The first thing, like maybe of being black in the plant community, is I'm in Oklahoma. A lot of the growers I visit are good old boys. Mm-hmm. And so I've talked about this every now and then, that a lot of the growers I prefer to visit are older, because when I talk to them, the time and the knowledge is a little more valuable, because they know things that I can't go Google on someone's fucking blog.
Right, they've experienced it, you know.
Yeah, they have years of experience. Oftentimes they have really cool plants that they know they can't take care of anymore, that they want to pass on to good growers. What I adore about my collection is most of it is comprised of different older growers who gifted me with a very mature plant that they entrusted me with. So it's like I have this little library of plants from growers that I have a lot of knowledge I've gained from. But I always run the risk of bumping into like racist growers, or growers that are surprised that a black man's walking into their greenhouse wanting to buy a cactus or a succulent. I've had growers who've straight up said like, "Oh man, I wasn't expecting, something a lot of black people into these types of plants." I'm like, "Why the fuck would you say that? Like, you could have not said that."
Really setting the tone for our interaction here.
I've been to greenhouses in Oklahoma where there's a big Trump sticker on top of the greenhouse, and halfway through me talking about plants, they start ranting about minorities and immigrants, and I'm just... And I don't, maybe you get older and you get a little more loose and unhinged with your opinions, which is why I get off Facebook. But it kind of sucks whenever your opinions are hateful and rooted in hate and oppressing other people. I'm like, I don't want to be locked in a glass house with you ranting about immigrants taking your job when you don't even have a fucking job.
Yeah.
Like,
it's such an uncomfortable setting.
Yeah. So as a black grower in the community, there's not a lot of representation. I do follow pages that specifically celebrate and share black growers, and I've gotten to know a lot of them very, very well, and that's been really nice. Before I got my plants on Instagram or got into the plant realm, I kind of felt like I was like by myself in Oklahoma. I'd go to these like shows and sales and these clubs. I'm like, it's just white. Which is fine, except for when I feel very alienated, and I can roll in white environments because I grew up with my dad's half the family being very white, some of them being very racist. I can do fine on my own, except when all the white growers in the room are looking at me like I'm the only black grower. And then they may not be racist, but they're all thinking, wow, there's a black guy in the room now. And there's that thing,
it's isolating.
Yeah, a lot of black people know this feeling when they step in a grocery store and everyone isn't maybe not hateful, but they're, a black person. Yep. Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yay.
The mood, like, shifts almost.
And then people, like, there's a certain thing, like, white people do with black people where they're, like, almost too friendly. Because they're, like, trying to, like, apologize. Like, they're trying to go, look. I'm not like other white people. I get that all the time.
We got that guilt.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, that's fine, but, like, don't be weird. Like,
don't be weird, bro.
It's like white people trying to let black people know they're not like other white people without saying it. And I'm like, ew. So...
Am I invited to the cookout?
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God.
So I've had that happen.
Please invite me to your cookout. I'm not like other white people, I promise. I'm chill, bro.
I've had shit like that happen. I've had white people come in and they're like, hey, brother. And I'm like, did you say that to Kevin back there? I don't think you called him brother. Like, shut the fuck up. Your fucking dreads and your beanie and your fucking glass-blown necklace. Anyways, so... It being a black grower in Oklahoma in the Midwest has been tricky, but for the most part, it's been fine. I just have a list of growers that I know to maybe not spend too much time around, and I have a list of growers who, like, some of my favorite growers in Oklahoma. This older couple, they have a greenhouse that they converted a tennis court into a greenhouse, and they're very progressive, they're very open, and every time I go, they have a huge Black Lives Matter sign on their front lawn, but they live out in the country. Like, not many people would see this.
It's a statement out there. It's not a fad.
No. It's like when they put that out there, they run the risk of some asshole, like, running by and shooting up their signs. And I'm like, okay, they mean it. And I know they don't get a lot of black, like, customers. They tell me that. And they you know, they're very aware, like, hey, we just want you to know, like, these neighbors are fucked up, or like this, and this, and we've talked very openly. So there are growers that acknowledge the difference and they respect it, and that's good. I'm like, we can talk about the difference, just don't be fucking weird about it.
Well, let me ask you this. So being a minority in the community, then, do you feel like, yes, it can be isolating in your personal life, but do you feel like you get maybe special treatment or different treatment from other people? Because of that? Because of that identity? Yeah. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Because I was talking to somebody about this who is an influencer, really big guy online, and he said he is a white straight male, and he said when a black straight male comes into the space, he loses out on the opportunity. And I was like, okay, first of all, fuck you for thinking that, but that's really fucking stupid. Yeah. But I don't know. Do you think that's true? Do you think, like, maybe, I don't know. I thought that was interesting, his viewpoint on it. I thought it was a stupid viewpoint, but for him to even think that, though, like...
So I'm all about upfront honesty and talking about real shit, and I would be lying if I didn't say that there have been times where a grower or nursery acknowledged that I was probably their first black customer in, like, all year, and I would not. And I've had times where I've noticed that I've received more attention, like more friendly attention from people who are trying to distinguish themselves and make me feel welcomed in their spaces. I've gotten private tours of nurseries and stuff, and there have been times where, like, the grower of the nurseries, like, acknowledge, like, hey, it's like, we don't get a lot of, like, minorities here because we're, like, out in the middle of Mexico or New Mexico, and there have been times where I felt safe with them acknowledging that, and like thinking, oh, great, like, cool, like, you're being very hospitable, and so that's been good. I don't know if I get special treatment so much, so I think more so it's because there's a lot of white guilt. I think there are some white individuals that feel so deeply and feel so bad about what other people in their demographic have done in history that they want to make up for it in a lot of ways. And so you get things like walking into a small business coffee shop full of a bunch of, like, white, entrepreneurs and business owners, and then the barista's, like, really friendly to me. And their hand gestures are a little different. They're laughing a little more at what I'm saying. And I'm like, I get what you're doing. You're trying to make me feel welcomed by overdoing, like, pumping more into my sphere than your white customers because you're trying to make up for what difference you think there is. Yeah, it happens. It happens frequently. Sometimes it's very cringy. Sometimes I laugh to myself. Sometimes I'm like, okay, now you took it so far, it's actually a little bit racist. like just simmer down and treat me like a fucking, like everyone else in here.
Exactly.
But also sometimes I'm like, yeah, go ahead and like give me a little,
what can you do for me?
Yeah.
I'm here to enjoy the nursery as much as the next guy.
Yeah. I'm gonna flaunt my shit. No,
put that card out there.
but also like a small note, because I can't say much I can't say hardly shit on being a woman in the plant community. But there's things I've observed from being a male in the plant community where, like, I have my podcast, I rant about shit, I scream about shit, I'm very heavy on my opinions, and I've noticed that there are women in the plant community that share my same sentiments, that have said the things I've said before me, that have said them just as loud or louder or more subtle than I have, sometimes exactly what I said, and the response to them I've always noticed is different. People are very, very volatile towards women, obviously, right? But when it always seems like when women go and speak their minds or state their opinions or stand up for something they believe in, the backlash is twice as hard.
It's treated a little more like hysteria than a legitimate opinion.
So, for instance, there's I don't ever like saying names because I've seen too many fucking plant people try to crucify each other. Yeah. But there's a very well-known female grower who has said the same things I have said on Facebook groups, and she's very right in what she's saying. She's saying shit that is universally true about how fucked up the plant community is, and I've seen the response to what she said, and it's fucking horrible. People accuse her of stirring up drama, and I'm like, she's just stating the truth. Or people have said, like, used words that have been, like, specifically used for women, like really fucked up words. People just try to, like, dismantle her career because she spoke out. And then there have been times where people have quoted me back at her and said, Tyler said it better. I've seen that. No one ever tags me, but I go through the Facebook pages and someone's like, Tyler Thrasher said this a lot better than you did. And I'm like, I think she said it way better than I did, and with less anger. Like she said it more level-headed than I did.
And ultimately, it's the same sentiment. You're not against each other anyway. There's no reason to pit you two against
and that's
each
what
other.
It's like at any given chance, and for what I've seen, it just feels like at any given chance, any woman who expresses bravery is almost met with like this premeditated army. It's like this just army of men who's like, we just want any woman to say anything. We're ready. We're fucking ready.
Well, and a little bit of that, I feel, does go back to, a straight white guy saying, well, I have to give up some of my power in order for, that black guy to get more attention. And the same thing happens with women. It's the idea of sharing this platform and relinquishing a little bit of that dominance in that situation.
Well, and I think the demographic, though, when it comes to just people owning plants, what I've seen, you see more women in it, right?
Yeah.
So I think a space that is taken up a lot by women, I think there's going to be a lot of like animosity towards that. Do you know what I mean? So as soon as somebody where it's, one woman speaks out, says something that is saying the fucking truth, people aren't going to like that. It's like, oh, you know what? We let you have your little house plants. You're talking about it, selfie with your Monstera Deliciosa, and that's what you can have. But as soon as it's like, no, this is some shit that y'all are doing, like y'all need to knock it off, people are going to be outraged. It's like, no, why can't we just all be happy with our selfies?
Well, it does make sense, though, that having house plants in a garden really fits that Susie Homemaker type image, where the moment you speak out about it, you really distort that image, and it causes that rift in people's minds. You're no longer taking care of the cute garden and fulfilling that cute role that you're expected to.
Well, it's almost like, like a lot of men expect women to, like you said, fit that role. And when they speak their voice, they're like, hey, aren't you supposed to be out in the garden or something?
Second.
Well, and that's like, when I say it, like on my podcast, when I say it, it's funny. But when, a female or a woman grower, when she says it, it's bitchy. Like, that's how people act. I've seen it happen. People laugh when I say it, and people lose their shits when a woman says it.
And you know what? On that note, I really respect that you don't want to name anybody and throw them under the bus or cause them to get any backlash. We're big fans of yours and your ideology, and a lot of the people who listen to this will be as well. Hey. I would love to know of a couple of women in the plant community who do share your views and are vocal and to support them. Yeah. I'm happy to get it off air, but if you want to share it on air, you're welcome to as well. But I would love to give them a shout out and kind of go and follow them.
Yeah. So one of my favorite women growers, she's in Canada, and her Instagram is Xeric Tings. So like Xeric, like a Xeric garden. And then instead of things, it's Tings. And she grows some really cool plants. She is very vocal. She is anti-poaching. She calls that shit out whenever she sees it. Nice. She educates growers on the risks of poaching and the devastation to habitats. Yeah. Of course, Enid. I fucking love Enid. NSE. She's a fucking gem. Ellis, she is, I think, in Hungary. I can't remember. She has a huge succulent operation, and she sells her plants very affordably. She's very vocal about this.
What's the name of her shop?
Her eBay is Ellis. Cactus Ellis. Okay. And I think her Instagram is Ellis Loves Cacti. Or you can find her on Facebook. Like, just type in Ellis and Cactus. Usually her name's in Russian, so I am no good there. But I've talked to her a lot, and her whole goal is make really cool plants affordable. And she sells them in really high quantities, so people can't keep up. Like she just floods the market with cool plants, and people are like,
"That's awesome."
So those are a few. Those are 3 women. I mean, the list. Oh my god.
Oh, it goes on, and I'm sure we can talk for days. But I definitely want to go and follow some of them.
I'll send you my list. But when you say women growers I look up to, those are the 3 that just bam, bam, bam that I go to and look up to and have a great deal of respect for. Another one is the couple that owns Mesa Garden, Tarah Morerod. She's the wife that co-owns Mesa Garden, and she's wonderful. She has wonderful ethics, and what the 2 of them have done to that business and for that business have been great. And I have a lot of respect for her and how she combines like plants and her family and all that stuff.
Amazing.
That's awesome. I mean, there's so many, but I guess those are my 4. That, like, when you say women growers, those are the 4 that I think of immediately.
Yeah. That's awesome. We can go follow some new people.
Yeah, and I'll send you a list, and then
please. Yeah. I would love to ask one more thing. Yeah. It's 2020.
Yeah.
So we're disappointed because the other day Trump's not out of the White House. You know, we were hoping for. However, okay, here's my piece on this. Fuck Mike Pence. I fucking hate him. I would rather have Donald Trump than Mike Pence.
He's a super villain.
Mike Pence scares me. Yeah. Like, Donald Trump just wants to make LGBTQ people go away. Mike Pence wants to kill them. Yeah. Like, that's the difference right there. So it's 2020. Are you feeling the burn? What are you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I just. We could talk about this the next time I'm in Denver and do like a 3-hour fucking episode.
Yeah.
I am feeling the burn. He is old. And I just want someone young who understands the people who are about to inherit the planet. All these old motherfuckers are about to die. And I'm like, y'all just shut the fuck up and give us a chance to live on the planet you're going to leave us with.
Yeah.
But I do love Bernie. But I'm afraid, like, once everything calms down and he does become the president, he's going to have a heart attack. He is fucking working. I'm like,
he is a workhorse. He hasn't stopped for 60 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm like, I don't want to be that old and working. Thank God he is. I don't know how he's hanging in there.
I don't either.
But I am feeling the burn. But I'm also feeling the big meteor that should just hit us all.
Take me the fuck out. I can't with this shit anymore.
It's coming. Hey, the second Thai constellations hit Home Depot, we're all done for anyway. It's gonna be chaos.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this year 2020 is going to be a crazy year, I think, in like all different aspects of like our interests, our hobby, like political, like there's going to be such a, I don't know, something is coming this year.
Yeah, we'll see.
And I'm fucking ready for it, but also, like, I'm a little bit scared. I don't know. It's, again, the pessimist, but, like, I'm trying to be optimistic. And I think we should be optimistic.
Yeah. You know what? Our 2020 started off with fucking Tyler Thrasher on our podcast.
Oh my God!
I think we have a great year ahead of us. I am ready.
I love that. See, Jillian's the optimist on this.
It's all about the balance. You gotta have both.
All about the balance.
Keep it right in the middle.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's been so unexpected and such a joy to talk to you for a while and pick your brain.
Yeah.
Everybody remember you can find him at tylerthrasher.com so you can buy all of those cool crystallized pieces for yourself. You can also find him at Tyler Thrasher Art on Instagram, and we'll will link him below. You can also find us at 2 Girls 1 Plant Podcast on Instagram, so make sure to go follow us there. And thank you all for listening.
Yay!
Peace
Thank
out.
you. Bye.
It's all you. You got to stop at this time.
Woo! We did it.